Hello everybody, my name is Ken Dixon and I, with German attorney Joseph Glaser, am co-author of Mieter and Vermieter, a handbook of rental law for Americans in Germany, which is currently available on Amazon Kindle and Amazon Kindle Unlimited US. Now, this is part 4 of our video series where we talk about excerpts from the book and different aspects of German landlord-tenant law. And what we did last week was we talked about the Mietvertrags, the German lease. And for the next couple of videos, we're going to talk about different components of the Mietvertrags. And today we're going to talk about the first component, which is the Mietvertragsparteien, which is the parties of the lease. And this may seem to be a very inconsequential aspect of a lease, but actually it's something that has a lot of ramifications if you're not paying attention. And this is the first thing that's typically found on the lease. The parties that are involved in the lease are obviously the first party is the landlord or leaseor, who is known as the Vermieter, and then the second party is the tenant or leasee, known as the Mieter. And of course, yes, that's how I came up with the title for the book. Okay, the Vermieter or landlord will be leasing to the Mieter or tenant some kind of property which would be referred to as the Mietsache. This property could be an apartment, it could be a duplex, it could be a standalone home, etc., etc. And BGB 535 succinctly summarizes the relationship between the Mietvertragsparteien by saying the lease contract, the landlord shall be obligated to grant the usage of the leased object during the term of the lease to the tenant. The landlord shall turn over the leased object in suitable condition for the contracted usage to the tenant and shall keep it in such a condition during the lease. They shall be obligated to bear they being the landlord, shall be obligated to bear the encumbrances on the leased object. The tenant is obligated to pay the landlord the agreed upon rent. The tenant is obligated to pay the agreed upon rent to the landlord. And this is a point that comes back again and again, as you'll see as our video series continues. But for right now, just note that BGB 535 just breaks down the very fundamentals of the relationship between the Mietvertragsparteien. In most cases, the landlord or Vermieter is the owner of the property. However, in other cases, the Vermieter may be a third party and not the actual owner or even a property manager. When potentially entering into an agreement with a Vermieter who is not the direct owner, or entering into an agreement with a property manager, the Mieter should be very cautious. And if possible, the Mieter should request on contracting with the owner of the property and having them listed as Vermieter on the lease. In worst cases such as this, when contracting with a third party and possibly facing an eviction situation, the Mieter or the tenant risks being thrown out by the owner, a person who they have no contractual relationship with. Understanding the Mietvertragsparteien is very important. It makes clear who the parties of the contract are, because things like the notice of determination at the end of the lease, and making clear who to send the annual utility bills, which will be discussed later, or when the warning letters, if there are any warning letters that come about. All these things are very important. Say, for example, when you're working with a tenant who has to send the notice of termination to the Vermieter or landlord, you need to go on ahead and send that to that person listed on the lease within a certain period of time, or it could be invalid. The same thing is for when the landlord is sending a cautionary letter to the tenants. Say, for example, they only send, there are multiple tenants listed on the lease, and the landlord only sends one warning letter to one tenant, but not a warning letter to the other tenant. There are cases where that warning letter can just be ruled invalid and disregarded. So that's why things like that are very important in understanding who the parties are on the lease and making sure that form of communication is open. When it comes to who's going to sign for the lease on the tenant side, the landlord is going to ask all parties with an ability to contract. That means anybody who's an adult and has capacity to contract and who's going to be living in the dwelling to sign on the lease. In the United States, you could just have one person listed on the lease, but maybe another person was going to be living in it as well. The landlord in Germany is going to want all people who are living in the Mietsache listed as Mieter on the lease. And this allows the Vermieter to have multiple parties responsible for any potential lien or anything like that. And this is why it's important to have a clear understanding of who the Mietvertragsparteien are at the beginning of the contract. All parties listed as Mietvertragsparteien need to be signing at the bottom of the contract, and if not, it can obviously cause a number of problems for both sides. So that's our conversation for the day. Very short, very succinct. We, of course, appreciate your viewing. If you like what you're seeing here, of course, go ahead and subscribe or give us a like, or we welcome any comments, of course. And if you like what you're seeing here and want to read further, please feel free to pick up a copy of Mieter and Vermieter, a handbook for rental law, a handbook of rental law for Americans in Germany, on Amazon Kindle and Amazon Kindle Unlimited. And of course, if you do have any legal questions, I will make sure that my contact information, as previously for my co-author, Joseph Glazer, is listed in the show notes. So thanks, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video.